how do we create healthy habits in our children? And what is your response, or what is your thinking or your ideology around this narrative? Like, well, it's okay for kids because they're kids. It's just when they're adults, it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Well, first, I want to say thank you for bringing up this topic. I care deeply about it. You know, my boys are really little, 4 and 2, but it's already really been difficult to navigate as a mom who cares very much about metabolic health. You know, I can point to experts like Dr. Lustig, you know, who has put his heart and soul into, and his work into understanding, the American metabolic dysfunction in our youth, in children and pediatric years. We have the highest and fastest growing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease in children. This is coming from liquid carbohydrates like sodas, sports drinks, processed sugars in the form of anything from maple syrup, honey, regular granulated sugar, juice boxes. Yep. These are really fast to metabolize. And we didn't touch on it, but fructose, I said, isn't metabolized into glucose or stored in your liver or muscles as energy. In fact, it's stored in your liver. And what can happen is the buildup of fructose then can create, and is, you know, that fructose can be converted into triglycerides or fat, and those fat deposits can be distributed throughout the liver. And so non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is the disease of the liver because it's having too much fructose and it has no place to store it, and we're not using it. And so it's depositing it, converting it to triglycerides and depositing it into what is supposed to be your detox organ, which is then putting kids at risk of their ability to not be able to detoxify endocrine disrupting chemicals and real toxins in their world. And it truly, looking at it, the metabolism of it and what happens to our liver, it is a toxin in excess. And so we have to be clear on that. And no, I'm not saying our kids can't have fruit, but the amount of what you're talking about, the amount of processed, highly palatable foods that cause this dopamine reaction in our kids, it's kind of unfathomable, the amount that is available to them. And so I do worry, and it is something we need to take seriously. And I think not only am I seeing that people are saying, oh, it doesn't matter, they're kids, they're active. The problem is our kids are less active than we were. They're less active than we are. They're on screens. They're sitting in chairs longer. They have more homework than we ever had. The amount of time they get on their playground is smaller. The size of the playgrounds and the fields have been decreased to account for, population size and the adding of buildings and portables to schools to just keep up with population. And with reimbursements to food companies and farmers for specific processed grains, corn, wheat, and soy, what is now considered a vegetable in school cafeterias is the tomato sauce on the pizza. And so it's really disheartening to me. And the only thing I can say is that we need to control the controllable, which is what's happening in our home. And so I am very diligent in keeping as many processed foods out of the house as possible, because when I realized, when Sebastian was he was like 18 months old and we were doing a lot of food, our own food. He wasn't breastfeeding as much anymore at 18 months. He still was breastfeeding, but we were, making family meals, and I was getting him involved. I cared very much about the science of like what was happening to our kids and what was important. And I wrote a whole course, Fab 4 Under 4, on the detrimental effects of excess sugar in kids. And I can touch on those and the deficiencies that we're seeing in children that are irreversible, like deficiencies in iron, deficiencies in zinc, deficiencies in vitamin D that are a deficiency in iron in children has irreversible cognitive problems. Like there is irreversible cognitive decline if your child is iron deficient. That's why when you take a child to a pediatrician's, they will prick your child's finger or toe and take their blood to ensure that they aren't anemic, because it's such a critical nutrient to deliver, or mineral to deliver nutrients to the brain. And so it's, sharing the science of blood sugar balance for kids, eating whole foods, eating nutrient-dense animal proteins when they are children, and how that can support their blood sugar balance and their cognitive development. and their body's development, from muscle mass to stature to all of it, it's really, really important. And we can't just say they can handle it. If someone's saying our kids can handle it because they're young, then they're focused on weight, and their child does not have a weight issue. But what their child might be developing is, a dysfunctional microbiome that has dysbiosis. They may be dealing with cognitive issues. They may be dealing with, ADD, ADHD. They may be dealing with depression and anxiety. They may be nutrient deficient. And so what the research shows us and tells us is that when we look at sugar intake for kids, they want sugar. They want that dopamine hit because it keeps them alive. It's a natural response. And when they did a study with lemonade from toddlers to junior high kids, and the junior high child preferred a less sweet lemonade, but 100% of the time, the toddler preferred the sweetest lemonade. And so we have to remember that they're not the adult in the room. They are not going to make the right choice when it comes to their blood sugar balance, their metabolic health. They are always going to want the extra sucker. They're always going to want the extra cupcake. And we need to have boundaries for them to protect their brain, their growth, and their development. Because when we look at retention studies with kids, the children who eat a highly palatable, highly processed, high blood sugar diet versus a child who eats a balanced meal. And this is in a Western study. So I'm sure the balanced meal is, chicken, rice, broccoli. I'm not, it's not even a low carb mix. It's just a mix of macronutrients. And no, I don't expect your children to be low carb, versus like a high carb pizza style meal. When they're told a story, 30 minutes later, there's a statistical significance in the child's ability to retain information from that story. So we're going beyond what is it doing to their liver? What is it doing to their body? What is it doing to the dopamine release or their addiction potential for these foods? We are now talking about their future and the future of our country and their ability to have a good job and take care of themselves. It's affecting their learning. And that's serious business.
Yeah.
It's serious business. And so we can't think about sugar being like, oh, my kid plays basketball and they can have the Gatorade during the game and the cupcake after the game and the orange slices at halftime. Like, where's the balance there? There's no balance. And that is a blood sugar roller coaster for them and a crash. And a lot of the times these protein bars or protein drinks were created for athletes who have a career in an athletic capacity where they're training
north of 2 hours a day.
North of 2 hours a day, lifting heavy, cardio. We're talking professional football players. We're talking about college athletes. And even in those cases, I may argue that that's still not necessary for them to perform at their peak potential. And I would counsel them to look at UCAN, which is a superstarch that doesn't have an insulin release that allows your body to perform without preventing the breakdown of your own or the use of your own fat for fuel. That aside, I mean, that's one of the things I'll do with kids is it's like liquid sugar is out. Like, we're not drinking. We don't need juice boxes. We don't need juice to start the day. We don't need sports drinks. We don't need sodas. If you want to get an electrolyte powder to make something taste like a Gatorade, great. If you want to squeeze lemon or lime into a sparkling water, great. But that is the number one thing that we need to look at. And then controlling the sugar that comes into our home. And I am not the mom who says, no, you can't have a cupcake at the birthday party I drove you to, because I think that's unfair. But I am going to say no when he asks me for the second, which I know he's going to.
Mm-hmm. And I think as a parent, this is where, I love that you said we have to set the boundaries for them, because when we think of the neurodevelopment of a child, really the neuromusculoskeletal system, truly. So we know that the skeleton doesn't truly mature until about 25. The brain is the same way, kind of matures at the same time as a skeleton, around 25 years of age. So your 12-year-old or your 16-year-old might be lippy and they might think that they know what they want, but you are their substitute frontal lobe. You are the person who is supposed to make these decisions for them. And, this is something that I've worked on with my kids. It's like, I'm okay with you being upset with me right now, but I love you enough for you to be upset with me in this moment, because I know that the long-term gains for this, because it's, sometimes it's like, well, like so-and-so gets to have, my friend at school has this in her lunch. Why do I have this in, like, why do I have the, the fruits and the veg? And, my friend has like the chips or the Dorito, like the little individual bags of the whatever. And it's like, because this is the mother that you have. And I'm creating, like you, very concerned about nutrition and brain health and development, like all the things that you're talking about around focus and learning and retention. These are and even just, I've noticed, I don't know if you've picked this up as well. When my kids do, so if they're at the party and they do have the piece of cake, they're different kids for about 60 minutes. They almost become, one of my sons almost becomes manic. Like he just can't control, he becomes angry. He's violent. There's no inhibition. And so you can literally see the prefrontal, like you can see the frontal lobe's ability to inhibit some of these lower brain centers completely affected. And then when he's kind of coming off of it, and then there's the crash, right? Where he's upset and he's crying and he's, and then afterwards he kind of it's like, oh, okay, Andreas is back. And then he'll be like, I'm sorry, mommy. Like I didn't mean to say that or do that or whatever. So we've had some of these conversations, and I was saying to you in the pre-chat, like, I think it's a really fine line, because I know that there's moms that are listening that are like, well, my son's a picky eater, or my daughter's a picky eater. They're not going to eat, the vegetables that I put in there in front of them. And my counter to this, and this might be me just being a hard ass, is, well, when they're hungry enough, they'll eat it. Because first of all, I'm not making, like, what I'm eating, you're going to eat with more carbohydrates, right? Like you're going to eat more, carbohydrates and protein, like these, and the fats, like these are all very important for development. But I'm certainly not going to be making mac and cheese for you on the side while everyone's having, the chicken and the broccoli or the steak or the stew or whatever it is that I'm like, you're going to eat what we eat. And if you don't like it, and this is like, I don't know how this is going to, like, don't call social services on me.
How is this going to land?
Yeah. Like you'll eat it when you're hungry enough, right? Like you can't eat anything else until this food is eaten. Yeah. So that's sort of the rule in my house. And, I don't have picky eaters, and maybe that's just a function of them being scared enough of me. But I also think that it's my job to protect them from that. Yeah.
Well, let me share some science that I think might motivate your audience. Because whether you're a hard ass or you just never gave up, it's important to recognize the average caregiver, parent, grandparent, nanny will stop offering a vegetable after 3 to 5 introductions, and when they receive a no. So you give broccoli, kid says no. You give broccoli, kid says no. You give broccoli, the kid says no. You stop making broccoli. Kid doesn't like broccoli. I'm not going to introduce broccoli again. On average for children, it's over 15 introductions for the acceptance of a vegetable or a different type of food. So we want to remember that when you make the veggie after they've said no, and you plate it family style, and you model and expose them to that food, you're increasing the chances of acceptance. And acceptance happens earlier in life. So it's going to happen within the flavor window, which is before 18 months of life. But after 18 months of life, the only difference between acceptance is the number of introductions. So it's going to go from an average of 15, which is like 12 to 18 in the study, to somewhere between 25 and 35 introductions. Well, if your kid doesn't like broccoli, I can go ahead and guarantee you, if you make meals at home, that you're probably going to serve broccoli 20 to 30 times within a year. And you need to think long-term when it comes to getting your child adapted to eating vegetables and not giving up. And ways that you can fast track exposure and modeling is and interactions with these foods is to get your kids involved. So that is, they go to the grocery store with you. They bag the fruit and vegetable for you. They cut it up with you in the kitchen. We make it into different shapes. We slice it. We peel it. We dice it. It's in a, I have children that don't eat cooked carrots if they look like a carrot, but the minute they're chopped up in the chicken vegetable soup that I had today, they don't think they're carrots, and they eat them, and they eat them raw. So it's like we get in our head that, oh, they don't like this, and so then we stop offering and serving. But it's the modeling and exposure. And if you are in mother-father household, the father actually has more influence in regards to the kids' eating behaviors than the mother. And so one of the deals that I make with Chris is that he, in this stage of life, sitting down with toddlers for dinner, it's like 8 to 12 minutes. Like they're ready to go. They're like, we ate real fast. It was crazy. Someone flung food. Someone got up out of their chair. Like, and Chris can't eat that way. He's like, I'm looking for dinner to just be like relaxing, and maybe I watch a little football and I like enjoy my meal and I eat slow. I don't want to power feed and keep up with my toddlers and be distracted by them and wrangling them back in their chair. And I said, cool, here's the rule. Whatever vegetable or salad that I make, you plate and you eat that. And then, check, you've eaten veggies for the day. And if you only want to eat the meat and potatoes, whatever it is later, that's fine too. But I'm guaranteeing that you're modeling the behavior of eating these vegetables for your boys, knowing that you have a stronger influence. And that's, research back. That's not me just saying dads have more influence. It's
that's fascinating. I didn't know that. That's
pretty,
great.
It's pretty exciting. And so the more you can get a kitchen tower, get your kids the kitchen knives, get the, get them involved. I mean, to the point, I know it's a little bit more messy, but like I always, anytime I'm roasting veggies, it's like, who wants to do the seasoning? And it's like, they shake it on the veggies. Sometimes they're a little light. Sometimes it's a little heavy. Sometimes it's on the floor, but they eat them more often than not when they've been involved in the process. And so if it's herbs you want to introduce, can you do a quick like pot of herbs in your backyard or on a, balcony or wherever in your kitchen window? Like, how can you do the process with them and get them involved? Because it's the modeling and exposure that truly changes behaviors. And so knowing you've cared about nutrition your whole life, like you're eating a specific way in front of your kids, you're modeling and exposing them to this, you're getting them over that hump faster. And now they're even to the point where they're associating their symptoms with what they're eating, which is, I have clients in their 30s and 40s that have no association with the foods that they're eating having any effect on their mood. They just think this is how I feel all the time. And once we can unravel that and uncover that, there's real motivation behind feeling good because they feel in control and empowered to make those choices. Like we went to the Cheesecake Factory with my parents who love the Cheesecake Factory, and my mom got a strawberry lemonade and Bash and I got a Pellegrino with lemons like we always do. And Bash was like, Mommy, what does Jamma have? And she's like, ooh, my mom always goes like, ooh, sorry, always. And I'm like, it's okay, Mom. Yeah. I was like, okay, Bash, did you want to get a kid's strawberry lemonade? Yes, I do. He drank it so fast. Again, taking you back to that lemonade study. I should have like even thought of it. Because I'm not trying to create this like off limits thing where he's going to want to go crazy outside of my house. But we're out, we're at a restaurant, we're celebrating, they had like come to his soccer game or something. And we were like going to dinner with my parents, and he drank it so fast that within 8 to 10 minutes, we were in the bathroom at the Cheesecake Factory, the women's bathroom. And mind you, he's like a 4-year-old having diarrhea in the, handicap stall. I'm holding his feet because they don't hit the ground. He's like on 5 like seat covers. And we were back and forth in that bathroom half a dozen times before his meal came. And I had to connect the dots for him that did it taste really sweet? It's a liquid. So it goes in your tummy really fast and it might go through you really fast. And sometimes, our body can handle just enough sugar, but it's hard to say no to sugar. So sometimes we drink it really fast and we drink a lot of it. And like your son with the cake, Sebastian's 4, but we're making that association. And he's able now to say, when we're at the birthday party and he wants the second cupcake, and I can say, okay, remember that one time? And it may not be like this, but I don't know how much sugar is in that cupcake. Did it taste really sweet? Do you think we should take a break? And then maybe later today, if you still want something sweet, we can find something else to have. And then you're at home. So, like there's other things that you can offer that you are a little more in control. Making those associations can really make a difference. And at whatever age your kid is, not to demonize a food, but your body is able to metabolize anything and everything. That's the coolest thing. And we can detox the heck out of any toxin, but it's the quantities that need to be in consideration of like, what we can, if we can handle everything, great. But at a certain point, there might be too much for us to handle and might have side effects.